Pretty Girl Club, get your tea, get your coffee, get on the elliptical because this is gonna be a good one. So, I was just minding my pretty girl business and scrolling my phone, and I came across a post where a girl was saying that Young Miami is more privileged than JT from the City Girls. And then she went on to talk about how the reason that Young Miami is more privileged is because Young Miami is light skinned and JT is the dark skinned one. And then she went on to talk about how Young Miami has been able to get away with being a mediocre rapper or like a below average rapper. And she has been able to survive in the industry because of that. And the creator also went on to say that if Young Miami would have been dark skinned, then no one would have paid attention to her. And so my first question is, who's no one? When these content creators say, if you would have been dark skinned, Saweetie, and you would have been rapping, no one would have paid attention to you. When you say no one, are you talking about the millions of unambiguous monoracial black women who are the consumers of rap music? Okay, so wouldn't that say more about the actual consumers of the music versus the person themselves? So it's like this happens all the time where a lot of unambiguous women, they constantly give us their power, they constantly push us to the forefront, they will bully us into unambiguous blackness, or they'll try to almost ride the coattails of mixed race women, and they want to live vicariously through us all the time. And so they will ignore women like Ari Lennox in favor of Chloe Bailey. They'll ignore women like Kelly Rowland in favor of Beyonce. They will ignore women like JT in favor of Young Miami, supposedly. And then we'll turn around and say, colorism got you to where you are. And then it's like, okay, so then who is the colorist then? Who are the colorists who are purchasing these people's music? Who are the colorist people who are choosing to listen to Beyonce instead of Kelly Rowland? Because the main consumers and the main audiences of all of these light-skinned women are darker skinned, unambiguous black women. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who try to say, oh, Exoticals United, her channel, she doesn't accept dark-skinned mixed women, or she doesn't accept light-skinned black women. They're trying to play the same game that they play with mixed race people, where they will say, your white side doesn't accept you. And they're trying to do that to invalidate you. And so Young Miami, from my understanding, is monoracial, okay? So the people that try to argue and say, well, if you're just monoracially black and you're not mixed, then like you're gonna have the same exact experiences as an unambiguous black woman. That is false, because look at how Young Miami is being accused of only getting to where she is because of colorism. They don't care that Young Miami is not mixed. They do not care that Young Miami is not biracial. They don't care if Young Miami is from the hood. They don't care if she identifies herself as black. They don't care how many lace fronts and baby hairs Young Miami puts on. Due to the obsession with skin tone and the obsession that a lot of women have with comparing themselves to light-skinned women, Young Miami is being ostracized and being accused of only getting to where she is because of her skin tone, and that if she would have been dark-skinned, she would not have been accepted. So not only that, we've got obsessed people in the comment section arguing about Young Miami's skin tone. So I talk about this on this channel all the time, how usually it's non-light-skinned, unambiguous people who are not mixed race who obsess the most and argue the most over who is light-skinned and who's not. If you take a look at Chrissy's channel, she has now hidden dozens of videos about mixed race people and light-skinned people. She even made a whole video at one point talking about who's light-skinned, who's considered brown-skinned, who's considered dark-skinned. So the obsession with skin tone is something that I noticed the most in the monoracial, unambiguous black community. So they were arguing, and this one lady said, light skin where? Brown is brown. Someone else said, she is considered light skinned because she is from Miami, like Meg Thee Stallion, Texas. And rapper Trina, they are considered red bones. That is why they get passes. So once again, the only reason you get a pass is if you are considered light skinned. And also, with the whole Young Miami getting a pass or getting away with, not being great, that is actually a sign of perfectionism. So I've noticed this thing where a lot of women, they have this mindset that you have to be perfect in order to deserve any sort of recognition. Your lyricism has to be perfect, your music has to be perfect, your lace front has to be perfect, your body has to be perfect, face is perfect, makeup's perfect, everything has to be perfect in order for you to deserve any sort of recognition. But you know what? Since I love psychology, let's look up what perfectionism is actually a symptom of. Boom! Signs of low self-esteem in a woman. Feeling anxious, heavy self-criticism, hypersensitivity to criticism, inability to accept compliments, chronic indecision, absence of trust, and what's that next one right below it? Oh, that's right. It's perfectionism. This is an image of a brain, and it talks about how perfectionism basically it triggers the amygdala, which is basically like the fight or flight response. It also causes anxiety, and it comes from setting unachievable goals, unrealistic expectations for yourself and for others. So my first question is, why are people pedestalizing Young Miami so much so to the point where they expect her to be a freaking goddess in the rap industry? So I thought that was interesting. So number one, that's very interesting that, you put such high expectations on Young Miami to begin with. I have never in my life even considered Young Miami as somebody who is, she's supposed to be some sort of greatest rapper of all time. No, I view her as another industry person. But my second question is, why is there this extreme obsession with comparing yourself to anyone lighter than you? Like, I had never even thought in my mind to compare JT and Young Miami. And I've noticed that, like, anytime there's like a light skinned girl in the group, or anytime there's a girl group whatsoever, especially if they're like black or mixed race or whatever, black adjacent, people are automatically, they're going to compare the darker person to the lighter person. Kind of like, remember how I did a video on how they called Chili burnt, and then they compared her to her two light-skinned members of TLC. By the way, this is black people doing this. And so now I'm seeing this same energy with comparing JT to Young Miami, which I don't even know why there's a comparison. And then they were trying to imply that Young Miami is basically more successful, or she kind of like has more clout, or she's able to get away with more in her career due to having light skin privilege. So it's funny how they will move the goalposts. They'll say things like, oh, you're not light skinned, you're light brown. Oh, shut up, you're not even that light skinned. Your white side won't accept you. Mixed women won't accept you. Oh, but you benefit from light skin privilege though. And the only reason that you got to where you are is because of your light skin privilege. Oh, but you're not light skinned though. And also, this whole talking point of light skinned women are able to get away with more, usually when they say they're able to get away with more, what they really mean is you're able to get away with sucking at your craft, or like not being that great at your craft. But also, it's like, who made you the queen of the music industry? There are plenty of people who have Grammys right now who can barely even sing. So if Taylor Swift can get Grammys and barely even be able to sing, and by the way, I'm a fan of Taylor Swift, but it's like, if she can get Grammys and barely be able to sing, if Britney Spears or all these white women can get Grammys and barely be able to sing, why is it that suddenly Young Miami, a light-skinned black woman, she can't get into the industry and barely be able to rap? See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So you're constantly comparing yourself to light-skinned black women, and you're not looking at the totality of how society works. Society does not reward people simply based on who's the most talented. We do not live in a meritocracy. Okay, so I don't know who lied to you. I don't know what kind of background you come from. And I'm so sorry that your parents or your teachers have lied to you and told you that all you have to do is be the best at everything and then you'll automatically succeed. No, that's false. There are plenty of people who are making music who are average when it comes to their actual talent. And that's okay. Not everybody has to be the best person ever. And I find it interesting that people expected Young Miami, to suddenly be, so amazing. And it's like, well, why are you only putting those expectations on her? And then you're shocked when she doesn't meet your high expectations of her rapping skills. I don't think that JT is the best rapper in the world. I don't think that she's like the best lyricist in the world. But then I don't go and get mad and say that JT from the City Girls doesn't deserve to be in the industry because she's not a better rapper than like Lil' Kim and all these other women who came before her. I don't even think like that. So this is something that I find to be very interesting. Like online, you'll see these women who like you would have never thought to compare these people, but then they'll randomly bring it up and be like, oh, well, Young Miami is the light skinned one in the group. And then like she gets to suck at rapping and she still has a better career than JT. First of all, that in and of itself is debatable because I have heard of JT, like I've heard more songs kind of like by JT, or I've kind of seen JT with more rappers and stuff than Young Miami. But then again, I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know. Maybe Young Miami is bigger. And I think part of it could be from the whole podcast thing, the Carisha Please or whatever. So it's like, okay, so you think she's not a good enough rapper. And so then she has a podcast, which is successful. But now people are saying that, oh, she only got to where she is because of her skin tone. But it's like, okay, what if she realized that she sucked at rapping or wasn't that great, and so she decided to pivot and get a podcast? And also, hello, Carisha is the one who is like currently being implicated right now, or she's allegedly being accused of, being a sex worker for Diddy, and we all know that Diddy had a fetish for light-skinned women wearing the white nail polish and then, watching them do these little freak offs or whatever. He dated Lori Harvey, Cassie, and then Young Miami. And so I don't understand how it's a privilege to be fetishized by a predator. So that's another thing as well. So it's like, even if Young Miami's career went up because of Diddy, I personally don't view that as a privilege because it's not a privilege to have to do that in order to get a podcast on YouTube. And also, why is the smoke always for mixed race or light skinned women and it's never for the actual owners of the music industry? Why is the finger never pointed at the white men who created colorism, texturism, and featureism? And also, why is the finger never pointed at the unambiguous black women who continuously support and push to the forefront women like Beyonce or whoever? And I actually heard that now they're also accusing Ice Spice of being colorist as well as Tyla. So it's like, okay, you constantly give away your power by supporting all of these artists who look nothing like you, and then you get mad when they admit, oh yeah, I look nothing like you, or you get mad when like they are promoted above women who actually do have your phenotype. And then also this random comparison, like, oh, it's Young Miami versus JT. I thought they were in a group together. And I think the group might be over now because, because of Young Miami being with Diddy and stuff. I don't know. But it's like, I thought they were a team together. And also, I never would have compared them because they look different to me. They look different to me. They seem to have a different vibe or whatever. And also, speaking of JT, where is the smoke for JT who made comments saying that the lighter dark skins are prettier than the more quote unquote crispy dark skins? Was that not JT that posted those tweets? She posted some colorist and texturist tweets. And why is no one calling that out? Why does no one call out when a dark-skinned black woman antagonizes other dark-skinned black women? And then suddenly we're mad at Young Miami because Young Miami was what? Fetishized by Diddy and I guess got a podcast and now she's popping or something. I don't view that as success, but if that's what you view as success, go off. And so I see some people that were making comments. Someone said, nah, nowadays dark-skinned girls are getting more attention than lighter-skinned girls, so I don't agree. I am light brown and oldest sister is light-skinned and my youngest sister is dark, like this girl in the video. My dark-skinned sister gets just as much, if not more attention than my light-skinned sister, and we travel a lot, so this I don't believe. Then somebody responded and said, many men pick the dark one because they know it will be easier and cheaper to sleep with them. Yet we're the colorists? This channel is colorist, but then you've got people on actual black women empowerment channels basically implying that the only reason a guy will date you if you're dark skinned is because you are easier and cheaper? Yet we're the colorists. Okay, let's look at some other comments here. This person, so once again, they're arguing about her skin tone. Wait, Carisha Please ain't light skinned? Well, damn, how light does one need to be light skinned? Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of times in the unambiguous community, they don't want anyone to be light-skinned because then they would have to admit that you're lighter than them. And so they keep moving the goalpost and they'll make sure that light-skinned is always just a little bit lighter than you. The way to shut someone up if you're a light-skinned black woman, if somebody says you're not light-skinned or you're not that light-skinned, all you have to do is say, what color is light-skinned? Name a color, not celebrities, name colors. And then watch them go silent because you will expose the fact that they just don't want you to be able to call yourself light skinned. They don't want to admit that you're light skinned because in their mind, they view light skin as a title or a trophy to be handed out. This is why you also saw unambiguous content creators like Chrissy in the past making videos talking about who's light skinned and who's not, creating an entire color scale based on that. And I understand if people talk about the light skin tone, if they are light skinned or, if they have that experience or something, then I understand. But the people that I tend to see the most who are obsessed and arguing back and forth over who's light skinned tend to be unambiguous monoracial dark skinned Black people. And then it's funny because they will say that like we need to stay out of their business or stay out of their spaces, but then in their spaces they're constantly talking about MLS celebrities. When I say MLS, I mean mixed or light skin. They're talking about ambiguous Black women like Young Miami. So when I use the term ambiguous, what I mean is that you're a monoracial Black woman, but because of either your skin tone, facial features, or hair texture, you are still othered and you are still accused of benefiting from an ism. So Carisha would fall into this category because of the way that she is being treated. She is being invalidated, and people seem to not have empathy for the fact that she is in a similar situation as Cassie, or at least was, or even if she wasn't, even if Carisha is an actual criminal, people are still calling her privileged. How is it a privilege to be a person who's trafficking others? I don't see how that's a privilege, but okay. Anyway, so this person said she is from Miami and down there due to darker complected individuals, she is considered very light or red bone. So once again, but why does it matter so much? Why are we so obsessed with who's light and red bone? And by the way, speaking of criminals, wasn't Young Miami the one that was kind of holding the city girls together while JT was literally in jail? So if Young Miami's career is above JT's, well, wouldn't that kind of be because JT also was like locked up for like 2 years or something like that, and Young Miami was still out and about, kind of like maybe doing things in the industry? Has no one thought about that, or is it only just because of her skin tone? Somebody else said, I'm from New Orleans, and light skin and dark skin are on another level out here. There are levels to this for Black folks, but Carisha is by and large a dark-skinned woman who happens to be, with makeup, a shade lighter than you. And I'm going to show you guys a photo of who she's talking about. She said, I'm sorry, but this lady talking is giving a jealousy vibe. Yes, both city girls are mediocre rappers, but both are very pretty no matter what shade they are. So this person, she's trying to be fair by claiming that both Young Miami and JT are the exact same shade. And these are the mental Olympics that I'm talking about. And this is exactly why on this channel, for editing purposes, we voted on what colors we are going to consider light skin. That's just on my channel. It's just so I don't confuse anyone. But one minute you're saying she's not light skinned, the next minute you're saying she is light skinned, and then after that you're saying she doesn't have light skin privilege. Oh, but then she benefited from light skin privilege. Oh, but you're not light skinned, but you are light skinned in Miami, but you're not light skinned up north, but you are light skinned in Texas. Oh, but you're actually light brown and you're not as light skinned as somebody else. So in conclusion, Young Miami, you only got to where you are because you're light skinned, and you only get away with more because you're light skinned. Oh, but you're actually not light skinned though. Like, can you hear how many mental hoops I just had to jump through in order to justify someone's career success? Also, another thing that I've noticed with colorism talking points is that people will say, oh, light-skinned women are able to get away with more bad stuff because of their skin tones. And then they will use examples like Young Miami being a bad rapper, or Saweetie being a bad rapper, or even on Real Housewives of Potomac. I remember Candace talking about how people who criticize the lighter-skinned castmates, they go easier on them versus the darker skinned people. It's like, okay, so what you're really telling me is you want to be able to get away with being a mediocre rapper and becoming rich, and you also want to be able to get away with not having people criticize you so much. Okay, so there's an easier way to achieve that rather than calling it colorism because somebody else didn't get criticized. Like, seriously, let's think about what actual colorism is. Colorism is discrimination against a person based on their complexion. So me not criticizing someone who is light-skinned, that is not colorism. That's just me ignoring the lighter-skinned castmates. So like Young Miami not receiving criticism for her behaviors, first of all, I do think that she received criticism, but if people are trying to argue that Young Miami would have received more criticism had she been darker skinned, it's like, once again, you're calling something colorism that is based on a hypothetical. Oh, Young Miami, she wouldn't have shit if she wouldn't have been light skinned. Okay, once again, you're calling it colorism based on a hypothetical. So she is light skinned. There's not another young Miami who has her exact same identity and exact same face or whatever who is a darker skin tone that you can compare her to. So do you see how people are calling things colorism based on something that doesn't exist, or they're just simply randomly comparing them to somebody who's lighter, or they see a person succeeding, or they see that a person is still surviving even after going through a whole bunch of stuff like young Miami, and then they say, oh, well, basically your light skin tone is the only reason why you have resilience in the industry. But they don't realize that what they're doing is they're actually implying that darker skin makes you inferior in terms of being able to succeed. They also don't understand that they're implying that dark skin tones have inferior marketability, because I heard people talking about Cardi B and saying that Cardi B is more marketable than dark-skinned black women or than dark-skinned women or whatever. And it's like, well, but you don't understand that by saying that you're actually implying that dark skin tones have inferior marketability to light skin tones. So who's the real colorist? Someone else said, but JT is more desirable in Miami because all the males that ain't into Cuban females like dark, harder-faced females over light skin. So do you hear the ignorance oozing from this comment? This woman is saying that men like dark, harder-faced females. By the way, this is on a black empowerment channel, so I would never allow a comment like this on my channel, but notice how on those channels, they don't even realize their own internalized colorism, texturism, and featureism. Since when do dark-skinned women have harder faces? Like, what does that even mean, to have a hard face? You mean having African features? Is that what you're talking about? It's the hypocrisy for me. Someone else came on and said, stop with the ignorance. Someone said, the irony. Stop being blind. Shut your stupid self the absolute F up. Nobody asked for you to be born. You space waster. You must be light-skinned. Yeah, this is literally on a black empowerment channel right now. Welcome to the community. Anyway, what do you ladies think? Do you think that young Miami only got to where she is because she's light-skinned? Do you think that her light-skin privilege saved her from criticism? Do you think that she was able to, quote unquote, get away with being mediocre? Like, when it comes to rapping and stuff like that, what do you mean get away with being mediocre? Like, this is the best these people can do. So in their mind, they feel like they're doing their absolute best. So it's not, I'm pretty sure that people aren't going into the industry like, oh, let me see what the crappiest rap is that I can write. Like, let me try to do my worst, or let me try to be average at best, and then see if I can, like, become a millionaire at it. No, usually these people are trying. They just happen to not be better than everyone else around them when it comes to talent. And so it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So young Miami is being shamed for not being the most talented. And then Beyonce, who is the most talented in terms of vocals and performing, she still gets shamed. So it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, if you're light-skinned. If you're the most talented, that all gets thrown out the window because you only got to where you are because of your skin tone. And then if you're not talented, you were only able to get away with not being talented because of your skin tone. So do you see how a lot of these women, they just narrow you down to your skin tone? You are your complexion. You are defined by your complexion and nothing more. And everything that you have in life is based on your complexion. Your marketability is based on your complexion. If you don't have a light complexion, you have inferior marketability. Do you see how much internalized colorism are in those talking points? Anyway, what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section, and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.